So we are recording, colleagues, and we hope it's good that all of you are in agreement, because then others can enjoy, others that are in the front lines of care can enjoy later on.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to say Happy Nursing Week, and this is the last day of our Nursing Week event. And welcome to an exciting session on leading with evidence, applying research in practice. I am Dr. Shinoja Naik, Associate Director and Chief Scientist at Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. And with me today, I'm honored to have our CEO, Dr. Doris Greenspan, along with RNAO leaders in guideline development, implementation, evaluation, and policy. Before we begin, I would like to invite Christina Medros to do the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Dr. Shinoja Naik. So this is our land acknowledgement. We recognize that our work and the work of our members takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that the office of the RNAO is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We also recognize that the participants of this webinar are located in other traditional lands across Ontario. Today, this land is still the home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this territory. By personally making a land acknowledgement, you are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years. We encourage you to learn about the land you reside on and the treaties that are attached to it. Land acknowledgements are an act of reconciliation, and we must all do our part. As part of taking action towards reconciliation, I am personally taking action by reading the Truth and Reconciliation Report and learning more about how to incorporate Indigenous worldviews into evaluation approaches and best practice guidelines as part of my role at RNAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. And this is the agenda for our rest of the session, opening by Dr. Doris Greenspan and Heather McDonough and myself, followed by a session on nursing research and opportunities in practice, which is going to be facilitated by the RNAO team. After that, we have a breakout room session with some exciting fun activities. And we would like to have a debrief session after that, which highlights core ideas you learned in the breakout room session. Last but not least, we have the Advanced Clinical Practice Fellowship presented by Christina Medros. And throughout this event, we would like you to explore multiple applications of research in nursing practice. The session will also highlight skills required for nurses to effectively use research to achieve a positive outcome. The overall aim of this event is to bring together nursing leaders to exchange and share their experiences in research on various aspects of guideline development, implementation, evaluation, and policy. Now I will pass it over to Dr. Doris Greenspan.
Thank you so very much, and happy Nursing Week, everybody. And I too come from Treaty 13, and also like Christina Madeiro, soon to be doctor also, and soon to be married, double. I am also studying and learning and speaking with Indigenous people to learn more, and also to educate myself by doing my own homework, as well as supporting financially both people that are in politics that are Indigenous in background, regardless of which party or which position, and also the arts, which is very important. So that is another way of contributing to Indigenous health and the economy of Indigenous people. I'm delighted to be joined, in addition to, of course, Dr. Shinoja Naik, who is leading this session today, by Heather McConnell, who is the Director of International Affairs and Best Practice Guidelines Program, by Nafsin Nizum, who is the Associate Director for Guideline Development, Catherine Wallace, who you may have heard before when we launched the Toolkit, the third edition of the Toolkit, and the aspects that we spoke about it on leading change. Catherine is the one that worked with us and really did the heavy lifting of the concept analysis that led to the work of the social movement action framework, because there are two frameworks and you will hear about this later on. She is the queen and the expert on this. If you ever want to know on all the elements of that framework, Catherine is your person that can share with you, come to present to your places, etc. Cristina Madeiros, I already did the preamble and I will not say a lot because she will be presenting about the advanced clinical fellowships. She is the person that helps develop at RNAO indicators for monitoring the guidelines, and she leads all the clinical fellowship program, which of course has expanded. And I just was saying, Cristina, in the radio now, that is expanding even more with the areas of specialty that we will be having, as well as with Ontario Health Teams. So she will be sharing about that. My colleague and friend for many years, Dr. Irma-Jean Beinok, with whom I had the privilege to work many, many years as director of the Best Practice Guidelines program, and with whom I was absolutely privileged. And believe it or not, I can't believe it was fun, but it was fun. We wrote the book with many other authors in 1 year. I don't know how we did it, but in 1 year it was done. And it's because we had fantastic collaborators that wrote amazing chapters. Irma-Jean retired, but you know, some of us cannot give up on Irma-Jean. So I asked her to come back to the policy department, and she's a senior policy analyst in the policy department. Cristina Pulano, who a tremendous leader in nursing, that finished a master in a very interesting area, and you should speak with her related to mentorship. And she is in the policy department doing absolutely tremendous work on the area of care delivery. Brenda State, who also I knew her for many years before, from Mount Sinai Hospital. And she is a nurse practitioner. She's Dr. Brenda States. We need to correct that slide in the go forward. And she focuses on the nurse practitioner policy. If we can go below, Lorraine Bailey. So Lorraine does at RNAO, just so we can see the slide of Lorraine, if you can scroll just a touch. Lorraine, say hi, because the slide is a bit hidden, your picture. And Lorraine.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And Lorraine tackles all the aspects of social determinants of health at RNAO within the policy department. In addition, there are many other team members that you will see in and out. Raul Pinto will be in my session, working on a variety of things with us. And if any of you will need help in other sessions, but we will be your facilitators for the breakout sessions. Next one, please. So we talked about social movement. Well, and we talked also about the book. So put 1 + 1 is 2. And what we want is for those of you that don't tweet to start to tweet. Download tweet is very easy. And for those of you that do tweet, please tweet on anything that comes to mind as you're listening to these presentations, and most importantly, as you're reflecting yourself on what to do. And so tweet, use the hashtag please Nursing Week 2022, RNAO Nursing Week, and then for sure tag along RNAO, because that's how we will know that you tweeted. If not, we will not know. And then if you see fit, tag along myself and Nick Shenoya, you have it there, Dr. Shenoya Nick, because we will give you links. And what you will get, whoever that tweets more will get the book. Now you can get it in English or in Spanish. So here you go in case we have people from other countries. So tweet madly, but do pay attention to what's happening. So you all know, I hope, that we are the professional association for registered nurses, nurse practitioners, and nursing students in Ontario. Over 48,500 members, and growing. I expect that this year, end of year, we will end up with probably 50,000. One of those organizations that is privileged to have very, very engaged members, very involved members, a strong, credible voice, or the strong, credible voice for leading the profession to influence and promote healthy public policy and clinical excellence. And that's why you see us so frequently in the radio. Yesterday, we released a mega report. Go to the website, or Christina or Imagine, you can put the link in the website to the report. It's a phenomenal report that brings both the challenges and opportunities ahead of us. And two main programs, the BPG program, which you all know it, and the health policy program, which you also know. That's your action alerts, that's your take your MPP to work, that's your all candidate sessions. Those are the many reports that you see, position statements, the platform. We should also put the link to the platform, please, Imagine. And that's the work of the tremendously active policy department. Back to you, Dr. Nick.
Thank you very much, Doris. And now I would like to give the session highlight. In the remaining portion of this session, you will be hearing more about two pillars of RNAO. One is the International Affairs and Best Practice Guideline Program, and the second one is Healthy Public Policy. So from IABPT Center, you will hear more about best practice guideline development, implementation, and evaluation.
We need the mics off, guys, except of Shannon.
Thank you, Doris. Before we dive deeper into the concept, I would like to do a Minty Meter to check your perspective on research in nursing practice. So let me stop share. You can see a link, and Andrea will put the link in the chat box. And if you are not able to directly link to the Minty Meter, please type in the URL www.minty.com and use the passcode provided on the screen. So I would like all of you to provide like 3 words in the Minty Meter so we can have that kind of like excellent word cloud on the research in nursing practice that we can use it for future use. And the question that trigger those questions, like what words come to your mind when thinking about research in nursing practice? Over to you, Andrea. Please share your screen. Oh, it's already there. It's growing.
Love it.
Lovely. Slowing down. We'll give a few more minutes. Sorry, a few more seconds. Yeah, it's completely stopped. Thank you so much for participating in this. Most of the cloud, it shows like the highlights, evidence, innovation, necessary. Exactly that is what we are looking for as a research perspective. So in the remaining session, you will hear more about what is evidence, and what is innovative, and what is necessary for nursing practice. This is the section meant for. Andrea, please save this word cloud for future use. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
you.
it's perfect.
Thank you. So this event is designed to better understand the research component in the day-to-day nursing practice and career focus in nursing and health system research activities. And when you say about research, it's kind of like a scary. The term itself is scary. And are you ready to think about research focus yet? And I would like to know whether you are interested in knowing your skills for the future betterment of the health system through research. From the Minty Meter, it's very clear we really need it and it's necessary. This section emphasizes skills that will help you succeed now and in the future while you are doing clinical practices and participating in quality improvement initiatives and research in healthcare organizations. So novice to expert researchers in their careers within and outside of regular practice focus on key areas in research. And there is a common quote by Albert Einstein: if we know that we were doing, it would be called research, would it? So we all participate in research one way or other way. Now, I would like to pass it over to our director, Heather McConnell, please.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. Just really wanted to highlight here, and just as we saw in the Minty Meter, that research is essential for discovering new things. I saw the word curiosity, exploration, and it really helps us to learn new things, be able to find answers to things that are unknown or where there's gaps in knowledge. And of course, nurses in all roles and in all sectors utilize their critical thinking skills to ask questions and identify opportunities for improvement, whether they work in clinical practice, education, administration, research, or policy. And ultimately, what we're going to really focus on today is that nursing research, when it's developed, utilized in practice or within the domain of the work of the nurse, evaluated and sustained, ultimately improves outcomes for the health of the people as well as the system as a whole. So Shannon, next slide, please. So I just want to very briefly kind of orient you to the model that we utilize for the work of the Best Practice Guidelines program at the International Affairs and Best Practice Guidelines Center. And so we see our program as having three main pillars. The top pillar in the center is guideline development, really the process of creating and synthesizing the existing evidence to support the production of evidence-based guidelines. We use that through international standards related to guideline development and use a very rigorous guideline development process, which you'll hear more about shortly. The bottom left pillar is the implementation, dissemination, and sustainability pillar. And you'll notice that it's actually got three rings, different colored rings within it. We're looking at the individual or the micro level, the meso or organizational level, and strategies to support uptake at the macro or systems level. And of course, we do that using a number of different approaches that are all evidence-based, and we'll be speaking more about the approaches that we take to implementation and the evidence that supports that work. And then finally, the bottom right corner is our pillar on evaluation and monitoring. And again, you'll notice three levels of integration here across the micro, meso, and macro level evaluation, because all of this needs to have an impact on the practice of practitioners, but also more importantly, the individual patients and families, the organizations in which they receive their care or they work, and ultimately the system as a whole. And hopefully you can also see that the connections and interconnectedness between the bidirectional arrows and the dotted lines within the model that really demonstrate that each pillar of this program interacts and impacts on other aspects of the work. And so we very much see that the work that we're doing together is integrated across all three pillars to help support the outcomes for our health system. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Madison, who's going to take us on our next slide.
you, Heather. So hello, everyone. I'm going to delve into our first pillar of the IABPG program, which is guideline development. So on our team in guideline development, I work with master's prepared registered nurses, also known as guideline development methodologists, to develop best practice guidelines. And these evidence-based resources are really the foundation to our guideline program. So guideline development process is actually very research intense. It includes 6 major steps that you'll see along the wheel to your left. So first and foremost, determining a topic, convening a panel of experts on this topic. So this includes members of the interprofessional team as well as persons with lived experience. Going on to conducting focused systematic reviews to answer research questions, forming recommendations, writing the guideline, and undergoing various stages of review, including stakeholder review, and then finally publication. Our aim is to update the guideline every 5 years. In particular, research rigor is a very important aspect to guideline development. Can we go back a slide, please? So we develop our guidelines using GRADE and GRADE CERQUAL approaches, which are international standards for guideline development. And these approaches require a very structured and rigorous process to conducting systematic reviews and developing recommendations. We also adhere to Agree-To standards, which is a validated tool that outlines various important domains of quality guidelines that they should adhere to, including stakeholder involvement, rigor of development, and clarity of presentation, just to name a few of those domains. Next slide, please. So recommendation statements in our guidelines are based on very rigorous systematic reviews. So first and foremost, priority recommendation areas are chosen by the panel and translated to focus research questions. A comprehensive literature search is then conducted by a health science librarian. 2 guideline development methodologists screen through thousands and thousands of articles to select articles that answer the research question. And then comes data extraction, which involves retrieving key information from each of the individual studies. And one of the most important aspects of the systematic review process is quality appraisal, where each study is appraised using validated tools. And then the studies are grouped accordingly and evaluated GRADE and GRADE CERQUAL methods. The key information and the quality of the studies are synthesized into documents for the panel to review prior to finalizing recommendation statements. So as you can see, it's very lengthy, rigorous process, and we often conduct multiple systematic reviews for our guidelines. Overall, research is really the backbone of our guidelines, which aim to promote best practices that are evidence-based. So that's a little bit of a high-level overview of guideline development and how much of an important role research is to this pillar. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Catherine, to talk a little bit about implementation.
Thank you.
If I may for a second, I just want people that are attending to fully comprehend the presentation, all of it, but the presentation of Heather on the integrated model and what you are hearing now. Savor it, what you heard from Nafsin, the robustness of the process. Our guidelines are, and she will not say it, but I will, our guidelines are used internationally because of their quality, not because it's only RNAO, it's the quality of the guideline. And what you will hear from Catherine in terms of implementation, we are ahead of the curve. And I'm not bragging, I'm saying reality. And that's why the guidelines are uptaked and stick there. And then of course you will hear about evaluation, which is how we evaluate. But for those members or non-members that are here that are not in the RNAO shop, please know that it's not just a book. You know what I mean? It's the day-to-day and what goes behind for you guys. Feel proud because the team, all of it under the direction of Heather, works to exceptionally. And you are welcome. If you want to attend one of the sessions of guideline development, you are welcome to ask Nafsin and she will slot you as observer in one of the guidelines. It's just a privilege. Thank you. Back to you, Catherine, I just wanted to highlight to people what goes behind the scenes, because it's just marvelous.
Thank you. And in the Minty Meter, I noticed the words of transformation and innovation. So how do we take research and do just that? How do we transform our care and the healthcare system? And that process really can be summarized as implementation, another opportunity really to use research as the foundation for moving knowledge to action. Implementation science, that's something that we've seen develop and emerge over the past 20 years in response to evidence-based practice. So this, by definition, the process and strategies that we use to adopt and integrate evidence-based healthcare interventions into settings. So that includes our best practice recommendations, but any other knowledge tool and product can be used implementation processes in this way, ultimately with the goal then of achieving and sustaining practice change and innovation that ultimately impacts QI initiatives. Next slide, please. And so as we talked about, in October 2021, we released third edition of our toolkit. This is our foundational implementation resource called the Leading Change Toolkit. It is available online and is freely accessible to anyone. Currently available in English, but we are actively working on multiple translations to expand its reach. And in the Leading Change Toolkit, you will find, to support implementation, two complementary frameworks: social movement action framework and knowledge to action framework, two very different frameworks, both of whom though focus on knowledge uptake and sustainability, and both which when used together can accelerate your success in implementation. Next slide. So in terms of implementation frameworks, they are developed using evidence. This is when we study a concept such as implementation and approaches to implementation, and allows us then to better understand what is that concept or phenomenon and what are all its related elements or components or uses, so we can better understand how best to use this concept to achieve change. Frameworks help us all as change agents, whether we're leading a change, we're part of a change team, or we're the people impacted by that change. We know that implementation frameworks we can use for any change initiative. Think of the range of BPG topics that we have in clinical care as well as healthy work environments. Any implementation framework can be used to support that in any setting within and beyond healthcare. Implementation frameworks also help to guide a change process. Think of it as a sense of how to get started with change, how to achieve the goals, and ultimately to sustain the goals, acting much like a guide or a compass as we navigate the sometimes complex process of change and sometimes very complex context as well. But a frame gives us that anchor, that starting point, and provides us with shared language or understanding of a change process. To effectively create change, we need shared meaning and understanding, and we do that by establishing the what of change, the why of change, and the how of change. And the implementation framework really grounds us in that how. Now, frameworks sometimes get a bit of a bad rap. They do present some challenges in that they can be conceptual and abstract and sort of feel like something else in addition to the change initiative that we're focusing on. It's part of the reason when we put together change teams that we have somebody who really has a strong understanding of implementation frameworks and know how valuable they can be as evidence-based tools to guide our change initiative. Next slide. So again, in the Leading Change Toolkit, we have two implementation frameworks, both based in evidence. Our social movement action framework for knowledge uptake and sustainability. This is a framework that applies social movement action, something we have used effectively at RNAO for the past 2 decades to transform care, and something we're passionate about. For this framework, based on a concept analysis.
If I may, so people don't get stuck on how, because I see some people that have been with us for a long time. I want to recognize Dr. Angela Cooper-Brathwaite, the second co-chair for the Black Nurses Task Force. So when my colleague Catherine is saying we have used for 2 decades, it's not in this format that Catherine worked with us and did the amazing work on concept analysis. It is on, the action alerts. It is the take your MPP to work. It is the day at Queen's Park. It is all those activities in policy that is social movement. It is the pin that we said you need to use, you need to use. It is the other pin for BPSO. It is the exercises for those of you, I see some people BPSOs, I saw Barbara Anderson, the BPSOs, all these ridiculous things with feathers, etc. Social movement. Now, what Catherine is presenting is nothing like we did before. What we did before was without a language. We did it because we felt it and we knew it's social movement. Now, Catherine, with all this tremendous international panel, really, you see an academic piece of work second to none. Thank you. Back to you, Catherine.
Yeah, so we wanted to understand, how do we take that same approach, that social action, social movement action approach, and apply that in the context of knowledge uptake and sustainability, moving something like our best practice guideline to action. And so this is a concept analysis. These are the elements of social movement action. And they're organized according to 3 time phases of preconditions, what must be in place in order for us to achieve social movement action, the key characteristics, what must be present, and then the outcomes, what may occur as a result of applying social movement action. And in the interest of time, I won't describe them, but all of it available through the Leading Change Toolkit. And then in the Leading Change Toolkit, you also find this second framework, the knowledge to action framework, a framework we've used now for many years since our second edition of the toolkit. This is a framework that is based in a systematic structured process model, widely used across sites, including our best practice spotlight organizations that move knowledge to action really through these 7 implementation action cycle phases. And you can see that 2 of those emphasize monitoring knowledge use and evaluating outcomes. And so Cristina Medeiros, she's going to talk to us a little bit about how we can use research to measure the impact of guideline implementation.
Thanks, Catherine. So as Catherine mentioned, research is integral in monitoring and evaluation. And here we can see as part of the monitoring and evaluation pillar at RNAO, that in every best practice guideline or BPG, there is an evaluation and monitoring chart. So you can see that in the middle, which is best practice guideline evaluation, which contains indicators that are developed based on the Donna-Median model. So these indicators include structure, process, and outcome indicators, where structure indicators describe the required attributes of health system or health service organizations to ensure quality of care, including physical resources, human resources, and information and financial resources. We have process indicators, which are healthcare activities that are provided to and for and with persons or populations as part of the provision of quality care. And we also have outcome indicators, which analyze the effect of quality care on the health status of persons and populations, health workforce, health service organizations, or health systems. And so at RNAO, we also we conduct a rigorous approach to developing structure, process, and outcome indicators consisting of aligning with external data repositories to adhere to a collect once and report multiple times principle. It's also aligned with the guideline development as well. And so we know that process indicators we map them to strong recommendations, which are strong based upon evidence as well as expert panel review. And we can see as an example for a proactive approach to bladder and bowel management in adults, BPG, that the process indicator mapped to recommendation 2.1, which is the expert panel recommends that health providers encourage persons who live with urinary incontinence to engage in low intensity physical activity as tolerated, that the mapped process indicator is percentage of persons experiencing urinary incontinence who received education on engaging in low intensity physical activity. We also map our outcome indicators to the outcomes of recommendation questions present in the BPG. And these indicators, which are present in these BPGs that are free to use, really allow organizations and healthcare professionals the opportunity to use these indicators to analyze the impact of best practice guideline and evidence-based practice implementation. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And so at RNAO, we actually have two different types of databases. So we have our NQuire database. So NQuire standing for the Nursing Quality Indicators for Reporting and Evaluation Data System. And we also have the MyBPSO data system. And both provide a really contextual view of the impact of best practice guideline implementation, where NQuire collects quantitative data. So that would be the data on the indicators described in the previous slide. And that really allows us to see data of whether best practice guideline has made an impact on different areas of practice changes at the structure, process, and outcome level. And then we also have MyBPSO, which provides qualitative data about how these practice changes were implemented, and other different types of qualitative data that may not be otherwise captured in the numbers, such as different descriptions of what the practice changes involved and how they were integrated, let's say in an electronic medical health record, et cetera. And we also have these really great evidence boosters, which are below the MyBPSO heading. And these are 2-page infographics, which actually display the impact of best practice guideline implementation and celebrate successes of best practice guideline implementation. And so this really is research in action, where we collect both, where organizations can collect both quantitative and qualitative data to really show the impact of best practice guideline implementation. I think I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues in policy for the next slide.
Thank you very much, Christina. And I'm very pleased to be presenting this along with my colleague, Christina Polano. And together we will share the model that's before you in this chart called Pillars for Advancing Healthy Public Policy. And Doris has already alluded to pieces of this. And I would say that I'm hoping that you begin to see the very great intersection of the tools that have already been spoken about. And again, Doris alluded to it, the social movement, the knowledge to action framework, and how in fact those tools are key in really introducing and enabling policy to be implemented. So I wanted to share the 2 key pillars when policy is developed. And one is the evidence pillar, which we're talking a lot about. And we look at statistics, policy papers, BPGs, publications, evidence that's used in reports that's right there. So those pillars come through in these, or the evidence pillar comes through in the domain of action that I've just talked about. Now, we all know, and this is what Catherine's talking about too, evidence may not be enough. The most solid evidence does not get action and uptake unless there are other pillars used, and we look at that as advocacy, and it's based on research and evidence. So to really create that healthy public policy, we need to do something. And you can see in the stages and domains of action for advocacy, there have been identified here 5 that are well reflected in the social movement framework, as well as the knowledge to action framework. And it's knowledge mobilization, the communication, and then hopefully through that building grassroots mobilization, coalition or partnership building, mass media and social media, and then of course direct advocacy with politicians and with civil servants. And now I'm turning this over to...
Before you go, I want to comment 2 important things on this. For those of you that want to see in detail, that comes from chapter 18 and has in the book and has two very important case studies. One is on the offloading devices with Miriam Batros from another association, and of course our amazing guru, Linan Mulrooney, on the issue of opioids. But I want to make a comment that is more startling and more sober and more concerning. So even when you have good frameworks and good intentions, it all can go wrong. And let me give you the perfect example. The trackers, that's all I need to say.
Yeah.
So you can use the same framework, the same, right? Just a different type of evidence that is not really evidence, but you make it up. Advocacy, same advocacy, same in the wrong areas. So one piece, when I reflect on this chapter that I led, that I think we need to write, and I think I wrote it in the chapter, but I think when we do a revision, two things we need to do. One is values. Values is foundational for anything we do in life. And if you have the wrong values, you can use the same frameworks for the wrong thing, guys. Look how terrible it is. It's just startling. And the other, Catherine, and this is a job for you, and me probably together with you, is to look at the Leading Change Toolkit, at the social movement. And now, because what we wrote then, we didn't have that tremendous richness that we developed with you and with the international panel, and apply that and see how this framework changes. Because I think it will be fantastic with policy and the BPG, and it will be just fantastic. But the most startling thing is how things can go wrong with the same frameworks, guys. So the first thing to say is, what are my values? What is it I want to change that is good for everybody? You know what I mean? Not that will create more chaos, because you can use the same and just take it to another place.
Thank you, Doris. And actually, interesting that you've made the comment. You were reflecting on this, and I was too. And I was going to the pandemic and to the whole point of context. And as Heather well knows, for 2 decades, we have been actually looking at long-term care. So given the context, policy has now been able to be changed. Not the way we quite wanted it, but there is policy change because of the context. The environment is right. So let me turn it to Cristina Polano, who will go through some of these examples. And I know we're wanting to move forward, but Cristina, if you can take a minute to share. No, just go back one slide, I'm sorry. Yeah, that one, yeah.
I'll just briefly give some examples of how this twofold approach of having the pillar of evidence and advocacy works in our policy department. So we do rely heavily on evidence within our policy department to create policy. And that evidence comes both from external sources, but also through our repository of evidence-based data that we have and have collected over the years at RNAO. So it is so important to be able to use our high quality work, such as BPGs, publications, and policy papers in order to inform our work, which we pretty much always do, and it's amazing to bring it forward and push those policy initiatives forward. But it's not only collecting and compiling and creating the best evidence, it's about how you advocate. And so a practical example that I can share with you before we move to the next slide is our RN understaffing resources. For example, we created political action bulletins and a fact sheet in a very tailored manner specific to the needs of our advocacy initiative. And in that case, it was used for the Queen's Park on the Road event in order to directly advocate with politicians and civil servants and push that issue forward. And so not only did we compile high quality evidence, both from internal and external sources, but we packaged it in a way that would be useful for that particular interest. And we mobilized knowledge by empowering our members with that knowledge and those sources to really advocate. And so I think that's an amazing example of social movement in action. And so we can turn it over to Lauren to just highlight some of our other policy work that we have done over the past year.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren, as I was introduced at the beginning. If we could get the next slide, please, and I'll just walk you through some of the reports. Before I even get into all these this picture web, I just wanted to make a quick comment. You know, I'm often asked, I'm coming up to my 1-year anniversary at RNAO, and when I talk about my job to family, friends, colleagues, they ask me what I do, and I always start off by saying, you know, really, I work in research. I work in policy as well, but it's really a research basis in our field in the policy, and so I speak about that just because I also come from a background in research before I went in to do my nursing degree. So in terms of what we do in the policy department, there's a lot of examples. I tried to pick some that were relevant in, you know, about the last 12 to 18 months. So in terms of here, we've had a very exciting last few months at RNAO. Yesterday, some of you may tuned in. We had a very exciting presentation about an exciting research report, a 140-page report that was released based on the work of a survey that was done to over 5,000 nurses during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's in the top right corner there. And I really encourage you to look at that report. Some really fascinating information. So the title was Nursing Through Crisis, a Comparative Perspective. This was got a lot of media attention based on the presentation yesterday. So some of you may have already heard about it, but it talks about things with nurse wellness, burnout, and RNAO makes some really excellent policy recommendations that we hope will be coming into action very soon in the province. Next, I want to turn your attention to another really exciting report that was released during Black History Month in February. So RNAO has a Black Task Nurse Force that was created in 2020, and they put out their first report with 19 recommendations. And so that's in the right-hand bottom corner, their recommendations. And we've done other things to advocate for that report. So we've done action alerts that have gone to politicians and letters about actually taking the recommendations from this report and encouraging all parties, we're a nonpartisan organization, to put these recommendations into their political platform. So we really hope that this election that, you know, our advocacy work in this area will be taken very seriously. Other things, as you can see here, we RNAO, as many of you who are members, you know, you get a lot of emails from us about action alerts. So that's a big tool that we also use in the policy department. So an action alert is essentially, we do a quick email to our members, and it's the chance for you to learn about an issue that RNAO is taking a stand on, and you can sign it, and we get signatures that goes to your local MPs. And really having the power of having a lot of signatures, sometimes we get, you know, even 10,000 signatures. This is used as an advocacy tool with different politicians and really helps to take a stand on how many of our members feel about a certain issue. And you can see here that we have actually done action alerts, you know, in the last few years on a number of issues, and some of them are still extremely relevant today. So one issue that I work very closely on in my area and my portfolio with the social determinants is the opioid overdose crisis. So I'm sure many of you are aware that it's a huge problem. Death rates from opioid overdoses have increased dramatically over the COVID-19 pandemic. For instance, before the pandemic, we were at about 5 deaths per day in Ontario, which is very shocking. And within these last 2 years, based on Public Health Ontario's most recent data, we're up to almost 8 deaths a day in this province. So just in these 2 short years, you can see how much this political issue is still, you know, something that we need to be doing more work on within our province. Another thing that I do want to draw your attention to is right in the center of the slide. We have our technical backgrounder on our platform for the election coming up on June 2nd. So those are just a few things. I won't go through everything here because there's quite a few on the slide, but all of these are listed on our the policy part of the RNAO website. So I do encourage you to take a look after if you have the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And now I want all of us to engage in our breakout room session. For this breakout room session, we have like 5 themes, which are really interesting. So the first room would be research, development, and implementation. Second room would be research and evaluation. Third one, public policy, work environment. Fourth one, nursing health and well-being. And the last one, you can create your own theme and have an open discussion. So please join in breakout room sessions as there would be a moderator to help you the discussion on. Please.
Andrea, are you here?
I am, yeah.
We are not sure in Doris's group who.
Hope you enjoyed. Now we are running over the time, just like a 10 minutes ahead. Sorry for that. So I would request everyone to highlight their sessions just for quick learns you gain from your breakout rooms. So one person from each room would be good. I think like Irmajine, do you want to go ahead with your updates?
I just want to tell Raul to be ready. We will not have any person presenting. We will just show.
Yes.
So Raulito, be ready for the show, please.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that in our room, we actually broke up and moved into other rooms because it was a smaller group. And so I think our flavors are in the other rooms.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Irmajine. So maybe like we can start off with room 1, research, development, and implementation.
So I'll report back. So we had a great breakout room. There's so much participation. We actually put together a whiteboard image of a tree with many branches and roots. However, I think when the breakout session closed, I was not able to save it. But I'll try my best to describe the image. So it was a tree and the roots had evidence and values of excellence. So those were the roots of nursing research practice. And then the branches really show the diversity in which research is applicable to nursing practice. So whether that's policy development, program development, improving practice through changing how a practice was done 10 years ago to now. Catherine, is there something other ones that that I might have been forgetting? Informing day-to-day patient care, staying current with nursing standards and practices, the area of understanding that research does not just come from one source, but the nurse has to be continuously curious and inquisitive and draw from many sources to inform their practice. So So yeah, that was sort of our discussion in a nutshell. I wish I could share the photo, the picture that we put together, but unfortunately I don't have it.
Thank you so much for the description. And Navseen, I'm sorry to hear that you lost that picture. Maybe like we can co-create it later after this session and just like a showcase. Okay, this is what we gained from the breakout room for guideline development. So I'll pass it over to research and evaluation. Christina or someone from the breakout room, please.
Hello, Christina, did you want me to speak up?
Yeah, please go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm Kathy. I was very fortunate and very privileged to be the only person in this in this breakout room, and so had the privilege of really getting a chance to hear from the RNAO staff and have them share their expertise in their evaluation with me. And one learning for me was to really keep in mind about evaluation of change, that it is something all throughout the change process, but also very important is sometimes after the change is achieved, we're very happy, it's successful, and sometimes we forget to have that ongoing continuous evaluation, right, for evaluation, but also for QA. And so they shared some strategies to sort of how to sort of keep that in mind through putting in some processes and structures in the organization to do that. So I appreciate my time with you guys and sharing expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. And then we will move on to room 4, nurses' health and well-being.
Yeah, I can speak to that. You go ahead, Brenda. Did you want to go?
No, I don't want to go, but Zena took notes. Do you want the notes from Zena, or would you rather just present? Zena in our group, she took notes for you. But no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. No, not interrupting at all. In our group, we had a number of members actually that are part of our best practice spotlight organizations, both in public health and student nurses who are in their programs right now. We were talking about nurses' health and well-being, and we really ended up focusing on, the realities of virtual experience over this past year, whether it be the way in which we're delivering care, the way in which we are learning as students, and also being able to work effectively with teams. And so we started talking about the need for evidence to support all of those things, whether it's, how best to deliver virtual care, how best it is to work with teams and effectively build teams when we're working virtually, and also, strategies to utilize evidence while you're learning virtually, whether that be through assignments, etc., or through actually evidence-based strategies to support a positive learning experience for a student who is having the bulk of their education delivered online. So that was sort of the focus of our discussions, and thank you everybody very much for sharing your ideas. It was a good dialogue.
Thank you so much, Heather. And now I am really curious to know what come up in room number 5 as a general theme, and please share your experience.
So I will just begin meanwhile that Raul puts the picture, and I will say how we did it and then who did it. So I basically asked the people that were not staff, because we had a few staff with us. We had Cristina Pulano and we have Lorena, and I will ask them to speak, and we had Raul, and we had 2 very involved members. We have Mina and we had also Barbara. So I said, okay, guys, what's bothering you today with the health system or with nursing? Anything. And it didn't take a second. And Barbara Anderson said, I have had, well, Barbara will tell you what she said. I just want to tell you how the presentation went. So Barbara will tell you why she said what she said. And then I said, okay, we are going to use the framework, guys, that we said we were using. On one side of the equation will be all the issues with that, of what we want and the statistics and why home care. And on the other side will be, how do we make it happen? So Barbara and Mina will talk about the side of why do we need home care, the statistics and all of that. which I think Christina even gave the statistics, so you can fill it in there. And then if Lorraine and Christina can talk how we make it happen, go for it, guys. And Raulito, of course, did the picture. Raulito did the picture. So we had a whole team approach to this thing. Barbarella, please go for the why do we need access to home care, your experience with the system, if you don't mind, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. I'm out in my garden and I've been planting.
Oh, and
so
we saw beautiful garden.
Yes.
She has planted already.
So just recently, I provided as a caregiver, palliative care for a loved one in my home. And this is the third time that I have had this role as a caregiver. And there was challenges with timely access to home care. And I think it's been complicated by COVID-19, definitely. But I just feel so much more needs to be done to support caregivers that are supporting people to be at home. My loved ones, I truly believe, had a better quality of life in being at home. But it's the caregiver that's doing this work 24/7. And that caregiver needs respite, that caregiver needs sleep and timely help. And what I really find is the system has gotten more complex and caregivers need significant help with navigation. I'll pass it back.
Barbara.
Yeah.
Maybe now we, Emina, you want to add anything before we move to Christina and Lorraine to talk about how we move it, how we make it happen from advocacy perspective? And what?
We talked about how family is very important and being together means a lot. And services at home is so very important to everyone. And hence, we'd like to take this forward and see how we can navigate solutions to the problems that we are facing with home care during this pandemic time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you in the group. Christina and Lorraine, your baby now.
Sure. Christina, you want to start off with the important statistics?
Yeah, I can start us off with the statistics supporting the need and the desire for people to remain at home. So a study carried out in 2020 found that 93% of Ontarians prefer to stay at home if given the choice. So it really is the preference of Ontarians to be able to do that. And in terms of our advocacy efforts in order to push this issue forward, we don't even have to look any further than our provincial platform. So this is a major issue that we did focus on in our provincial platform, and bringing awareness to this issue amongst our members and the public is a first and a very important and crucial step at this time to make progress on this issue. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
Sure. So in terms of mobilization, how the policy department usually works is, we have an issue, and this is actually a great example because we've heard about home care from many other people. It's been a key issue in our provincial platform in the election coming up on June 2nd. What do we actually do once we know what the issue is and we have the research? Well, there's a number of things RNAO and you really as nurses can do. So one thing I mentioned earlier in the presentation is we do action alerts to our almost 50,000 members, and we try and get signatures which go to MPPs, to lobby for issues. Other things we do is we write reports, we write letters to the editor, we write letters to actual politicians and their political parties and their teams. We advocate. One thing that RNAO has been very central in doing that's actually been done is Ontario and federally, we are in the process of hiring chief nurse officers, which is fantastic. They're bringing back those positions, and we will continue to advocate for a provincial nursing committee. So actually having a committee in the province made up of nurses, made up of people who actually work in healthcare, because often politicians understand that there's an issue with home care, but if you don't have a nursing or a healthcare background, you don't really understand what necessarily the key issues are unless you yourself have dealt with the issue, maybe through a family member. So to actually have a committee that we're advocating with and who understands that because they have nursing backgrounds, that's another example. Other things we may do, Doris is daily, multiple times a day, quoted in the media, speaking with CBC, interviews, letters to the Star, to the Globe and Mail. So there's a number of different things. I could go on, but I think those are just some of the key things we do to actually mobilize our research and make sure that there are political changes happening,
So
in Ontario.
I
Go
want
ahead,
to
Doris.
comment. Thank you. I want to comment a little bit as a wrap up, Shan, on this, but leave the picture, Raul, because I want to bring together what we did today, ending with the framework of how we make it happen. So we spoke about how the guidelines are developed. We spoke about how the guidelines are implemented. We spoke about social movement action and knowledge to action. We spoke about evaluation. So you have here in the chart a theme that came out of passion from people. Barbara put the theme. This is the passion is part of the framework of social movement. You know, you need to have that sense of urgency. I need this to happen. This is important. And you can see what she said, right? It's important because people want to be at home. Well, we had the statistics, right? Right, Christina right away said, I have the statistics for it. And then we had that Barbara said, it's better quality of life at home. And then our colleague Mina, it supports caregivers. Barbara said, yes, I was doing it anyways, 24/7. Again, urgency, urgency, urgency. I need this now. And then was, okay, we have it in the political platform. But I said to people yesterday, I had the privilege to be in the retirement party of Shirley Sharkey. And I said when I spoke at the podium, you don't need descriptions. You just say Shirley Sharkey and you know what you're talking about. It's like BPSO, you know what you're talking. Shirley Sharkey is the same, you know what you're talking. Quality, home care, access. So what we need is multiplied Barbara's, Mina's, in the front lines of caregiving, guys, not only at RNAO, writing letters to the editor, pushing their MPPs, because they all promised this time, eh? Keep an eye. They all promise home care. Don't leave this session without that because it's important. Fourth promise, NDP promise 2 million. Del Duca promise 1 million. Mike Schreiner, they all promise home care. Do not forget that. Call them to task from now to elections and after elections. Barbarella, write letters to the editor. And I say to all my colleagues that because we all know, we all are professionals. We are also all our families, friends, or whatever we are. So access to medications, Barbara said, in hospitals, everybody gets medication. In home care, last minutes of life, people cannot swallow. And here they have these pills. So use this, but use this. This is the type of framework you can use on any topic that is a passion for you. And you have us at RNAO, we can help you. The research is there, the evidence is there. We can give you the evidence. You don't need to toil for the evidence because we can, whether it's the policy department can, or whether it is the BPG department can, we will find you the evidence. What we cannot do for you, yes, I can speak with the media, but that's not enough. What we cannot do for you is go and push the local politician and say, your boss, because it's their leader of their party, promise home care. I want it now. I want it now. What are you going to do for my family, in my community, in my street, so I get what I need? That's the type of action we need to move at RNAO next, right? Yes, RNAO does, and that's commendable that we do. But we need every single nurse to mobilize, whether retired or not, whether practicing or not, to mobilize with their communities to make things happen. And home care, I'm so glad, Barbara, that you brought that topic, because home care is where things need to be at. Because these catastrophic surgical wait times for procedures and surgeries ain't going to happen, not only because we don't have people in the hospitals, because we cannot discharge people home. How can you discharge people home if you don't have people, caregivers at home? So back to you, Dr. Naik, what a session. And if you want to learn about the methodology of how to use the board and pictures, etc., connect with Raul. Raul, put please your link for any of you, whether, you know, I saw the two amazing co-chairs, Corsita and Angela, of the Black Nurses Task Force. any of you. I saw so many members engaged and staying. If you want to use methodologies, even for your own work, whether it's in school, whether it's in whatever, connect with Raul. He will teach you a wonderful methodology. Thank you.
Thank you so much for wonderful sessions. And this is kind of like an excellent breakout room wrap up. And I'm so excited to see how the framework and how the actions emerge from when people get together and know each other, what we want to do and how we can make it in action. So thank you so much for that session. And we are running over. I think like we can wrap up around 11:30, and we have just like a small session on ACPF. So Christina, I'll share the screen for you. 1 second. Okay, please.
Thanks, Shinoja. And thank you everybody for your participation. This has been quite the session, really exceeded our expectations. Thank you so much. In terms of the Advanced Clinical Practice Fellowship, this is also a really great opportunity for research. So the Advanced Clinical Practice Fellowship program actually provides registered nurses and nurse practitioners and healthcare providers the opportunity to have a focused self-directed learning experience to develop and promote nursing knowledge and expertise to enhance the capacity to lead change and support the uptake of evidence-based practice, and also support the achievement of the quadruple aim and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we all know the quadruple aim is to improve patient experience, improve health outcomes, improve cost, and improve provider experience, but also within the lens of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, such that we're really considering not only improving health outcomes, but also improving health outcomes for those who may be underhoused, or for those who are experiencing the health system from a different lens with respect to social determinants of health. Next slide, please. I'm just cognizant of everybody's time. Right, and so we have a really important update in the afternoon with respect to the Advanced Clinical Practice Fellowship. And that'll be in the RNAO in Focus release of Nurses Health and Wellbeing webpage at noon. So you have some time to grab some lunch, and I highly recommend that you come and you listen, because there's some really important updates about the ACPF. And then and please don't forget about our Twitter challenge. So how do you apply research in your nursing practice? Remember to hashtag Nursing Week 2022, hashtag RNAO Nursing Week, tag at RNAO, tag at Dr. Doris Grinspan, as well as tag at Dr. Shinoja Naik. And you could have the opportunity to have this wonderful textbook, which is something that I keep at my table side and I use consistently with respect to evaluation, development, implementation. It's right here, and it's so important, and it's great. So this is super exciting.
And we also have the book translated in Spanish, and Doris has that book. So Doris. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And that was really a wonderful session. If you want to get more information about RNAO, please visit our webpage, rnao.ca. And if you want to contact us, rnao.ca/contact. So that's such a wonderful session. And thank you so much for your participation. And sorry for that we went over the time. Again, hoping to see you in the afternoon session.
Can someone put the link so people can have it for the afternoon session, please? Christina, would you have it by any chance?
Hang on, I'm just quickly looking for it.
Here you go. It's there.
Yeah.
Bravo, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
Thanks,
no
everyone.
one saw Andrea, but Andrea is behind the scenes. Andrea Stubbs, thank you for organizing smoothly the sessions, for moving us wherever we need, for bringing us back so we don't stay there forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Happy Nursing Week.
Happy Nursing
Nursing
Week.
Week.
Happy Nursing Week. Bye, everyone.